So this is Joe Biden's speech. I can't believe this here. This is his speech in 1993. They're talking about the crime bill. And politically, this was a time where everybody had to be tough on crime. I'm going to stand up and fight crime. That's what I'm going to do. Look at his language. Look at his position and his disposition. And then we'll come back and break this down, and I'll tell you why this is so telling and also disastrous.
We must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. I'm the guy that said, rehabilitation, when it occurs, we don't understand it and notice it. And even when we notice it and we know it occurs, we don't know why. So you cannot make rehabilitation a condition for release. That's why in our system, there's the federal system, you serve 85% of your time. It's a shame, but we don't know how to rehabilitate. But there is a consensus, and I will cease. A, we must make the streets safer. I don't care why someone is a malefactor in society. I don't care why someone is antisocial. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior. That's why we do in this bill. We have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it. But they are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families. But we would be absolutely stupid as a society if we didn't recognize the condition that nurtured those folks still exist. And we must deal with that.
So that bill that he was vociferously arguing for is a bill that locked up countless non-violent drug offenders. So many lives were ruined because of his insane position, hardcore right-wing, law and order, tough on crime stance, which, again, ultimately this wasn't focused on, violent offenders or something. It was non-violent drug offenders. And look at the language. Take back the streets. Their background and what happened doesn't matter. This is super predator type language. He said there are predators on the streets. Hillary had said super predators. They have no conscience. And probably the worst part of all is the last part where he says we can't focus on rehabilitation. Rehabilitation, we just can't do it. Now, I'm on record. I've said that I think a mixed approach on criminal justice reform is the way to go, where you should have rehabilitation and punishment, and it should be, in certain cases, all you need is rehabilitation. In certain cases, you need rehabilitation and punishment. And then in maybe the hardest of cases of serial murderers, rapists, whatever, they could just be punishment. But the data shows very clearly that rehabilitation works. And again, this is coming from somebody with a mixed take on it, but if you look at the Scandinavian region and their prison system, their recidivism number is so much lower than ours. So in other words, people are criminals, they go to jail, they go to prison, they get out, and they don't commit crimes again. Which is kind of the point. That's what the whole point is supposed to be of correctional facilities. Let's correct their path in life and make it so that they don't do terrible things. And they've succeeded. We have a very high recidivism rate, so we failed, and our criminal justice system is overwhelmingly geared towards just punishment. Very draconian and primitive criminal justice system we have here. And basically what he's doing is he's doubling down and he's tripling down on the wrong approach of forget rehabilitation, it's stupid, it's naive, it's dumb. When again, the data shows the opposite, that focusing on rehabilitation is actually very intelligent and works. So it's just, Joe Biden, whenever it was politically convenient, hardcore right-winger. That's what it is. That's what you're seeing here. And now you should know this because he's about to launch his presidential bid.